All right, so before we begin, let me introduce myself. I have around 20 years of experience in IT industry and largely into DevOps and cloud solution. That's what I've been doing from last 5 years. So it's been 5 years, and I also work for an European customer. And I work for an European customer as a solution architect. Right, so I'm also full-time employed with an European customer. And regarding my training and freelancing, it's been 3 years now. So I do a lot of trainings and out of passion, because I have a lot of passion regarding training. So I have a edge, and that's how I'm connected with MindMajix. This is there, and I have working experience with many customers, so on various cloud platform, because the cloud landscape is even itself is very big. So I come with a lot of customer experience, and that real time scenarios, real time experience, I bring it over here so that people can understand. So that is how I do here at MindMajix. And then we also provide backend support. Backend support in the sense, if the person is trained by us and if he's looking for a job change or a job switch, and once he get into new job, so till he settle down with the role, responsibility, all that thing, then we also provide a backend support. So it's just like a tight hand holding session with him till he settles down for a week, 2 week like that. And then based on the agreement, we also provide backend support. All right, so this is about me. All right, so this is Kubernetes. Kubernetes, I'll not get into Kubernetes. Straight, I'll go to the certifications. I think you have enrolled for CKAD. That is what you are looking for, this information. So normally we have two tracks, and very soon we are going to add one more from the security side, because Kubernetes has one more CKS, Certified Kubernetes Security Specialist certificate. Anyhow, we are going to add it one more here. So let me go straight here. Okay. So we are here, right? So Certified Kubernetes Application Developer, that is CKAD, and this is basically certification. When you enroll, the exam fee, it comes with an exam, right? So it's just the exam fees, not the complete course fees, just the exam fees. Whenever you want to write this exam, you have to enroll and you have to pay $375. There might be some coupons floating around, and we can just take the benefit of coupon, so that we may get some discount also, might be 15 to 20% or 10 to 15% based on what they are going to offer. So this is basically the price, and in this price one retake is free, right? One retake means you
Okay.
will get two chance. If you clear in first chance, well and good, forget other, because you are already certified. If you lose the first chance by any case, any circumstances, then one retake is free. You need not to pay anything, that is already included over here. All right, so that is what it says. Now let's talk about more in detail. If you want to take online training from these guys, right, they will charge you this much amount. All right, so you can buy the bundle, and I think they are not giving one-to-one support. It's like videos and all that thing you have just to follow, just to complete the course, right? So
Okay.
this is they do, and they give commitment 100% money back guarantee. So I didn't find it, because many people they lost money, and I don't know what they mean to claim. So that's fine. So this 375, what it includes, so let's get into the details, right? So it's an online exam, right? So you can also register online. There are links here available. I'll show you how to register. And once you register, at least you have to register 3-4 days before, right? So I'll give enough space to them, and there would be one coordinator who would be sitting. You have to put the camera on. One guy would be sitting on the other side. He would be monitoring you, and he will completely giving you the guidance that do this, do that, and all that thing. Before exams, you have to run your camera across the room and let that guy satisfy that there is no open book, there is no cheats, there is no nothing, nobody's there in while writing the exam around in that room. So all that he will ask you, right? So you have to scan your camera until that guy is certified. He may even ask you, okay, rotate below the table and all that thing, right? You know, the things are very jazzy, and this is what they do. And the duration of exam is 2 hours, right? So there would be around 70 to 18 questions, and the duration is 2 hours. And the question mostly would be scenario based questions. That means you should literally have an hands-on experience, then only you can go and attempt this exam, because it's not objective based. That they will give you some option, you pick one, write one, and then move on and complete your exam. It is not like that. It's all scenario based. That means they will give you the access of the lab. You have to understand the question and perform the same question on the lab, and ensure that you get a results also, right? So you have to literally execute. If there are any error or anything, you have to fix it by your troubleshooting experience, and then just go attempt it and just do that, right? So that is what you have to do. So this is 2 hours duration here. So you have to literally little bit fast also, because 17-18 question, right? So that weightage is too high. right? The certificate is valid for 3 years, right? You must be surprised that after paying so much money, so much thing, and why it is only valid for 3 years and why not more than 3 years or lifelong, right? Because what happens is these guys think that technology will change after 3 years, right? These guys thinks that technology will change after 3 years. You cannot continue with the some old technology. It will improve, right? At least after 3 years, there would be a change in the technology. So you have to renew this exam. That is what. And Kubernetes is nowadays, we know already, it's very, very popular nowadays. And Kubernetes is every day's development. That means the development is still on. They are going to add a few more things. Every now and then I see they have integrated with IoT, they have integrated with other cloud, they are integrated with so many other applications, right? So
Okay.
enterprise suite application, all that thing. And now Kubernetes is managing infrastructure also, right? So many things when you talk about infrastructure application side, we cannot stay with just 3 years legacy system, right? So it has to be improved. So it is valid for 3 years, which is good. I think it's a very decent period of time,
Yep.
right? Once you get into the new job, new thing, and then you already have a badge and you already have an edge, and no need to just write the same exam. You can just go with the higher exams. There are other exams around, right? So you can pick that also. So it would add another feather under your hat, and that's where people do. Right now, once you register, let's say you register today, it is valid for 12 months eligibility. That means within a year, you have to complete both your attempts, 1+1. That means even the retake included that one, you have to complete. So this subscription, once you buy the subscription, it is valid for 12 months. So anytime you can write it, right? So you can write one exam after 1 week, and after 6 months you want to again attempt it again, or after 3 months, or after next month. You have complete flexibility. There are no rules to define. Immediately within the same week you want to write both the exams, you can do that, right? So this is thing, and they have clearly mentioned one retake is free, right? So that means one retake you can take, right? Write exam, and there would be one retake which will be available, and you can reappear and retake it, right? So this, they are going to provide you PDF form of certificate would be PDF, right? And if anybody asks you, you can just float the PDF as a proof, and there's a validation link. They can go and directly validate with the Linux Foundation, and they will, your credentials will be verified. So they normally provide PDF file, and there would be a digital badge, right? That badge you can attach in your resume, right? You can put it the logo in a resume. That would be your badge that you are certified professional. And nowadays, right, most of the recruitment companies, all big shots, they just do the scrutiny of resumes by certified professionals. So you will also be picked up. You would also be shortlisted as and when the new opportunity will come at a big corporates. So then the interview and other thing will be scheduled. So nowadays that is the criteria, and that is the reason you can put this badge on your CV also. Software version, so basically you have to write the exam on version 1.22. All right, so that is the version. They have changed it 1.22, and you can just go and you can do that. So this is the version 1.22, and then you can just go and you can write the exam. So this is the version, right? So they stick to version. Earlier it was 1.21, and then performance based exam. So that is how you attempt your questions. So they are going to measure everything. Let's say the scenario, in the scenario, let's say 80% is through, but last thing they wanted to expect you to display one page, and you are not able to display that page. Might be you goofed up something at the end, right? So it is not that you will get 0 marks, right? It is not like that. They will just go through step by step, step by step, step by step, and how many steps you are clear with that, accordingly the marking will be done. So you are not going to get the results instantly, right? Once you end the exam, you are not going to see, okay, whether it's a success or fail. That result, it will not appear immediately. You have to wait for a couple of hours, right? So they give a range of 24 hours to 48 hours. Within that, they will send you email, right? And through the email you will be notified whether you have succeeded or not, right? So that is how normal people get succeeded, right? So that is how we'll see. And it would be thoroughly performance based exam. So don't
Okay.
think that's an objective and immediately once you end the exam you would get a result. It is not like that, right? Exam simulator, this is very, very important point. So before you write this exam, so basically they will give you a prototype, right? So they give you two simulator exams, right? Which is exactly the same, so you can feel the experience before you just go. And you are not well versed and you are spending time in getting well versed with the tool itself. Okay, where is my lab? Okay, I want notepad, where to write it, right? All you will get confused, and you will, lot of time you will go in just understanding the application and the exam environment, right? So what they are giving you two simulators and you can go and attempt that both the simulators, right? So you can just get familiar, and there the clock will be ticking, number of question would be there, scenario based question. So just to make you familiarize, and what would be the pattern, right? What would be the pattern, what would be the exam style, right? And how much duration you can write and clear the exam. So there would be the clock ticking as good as you are writing an exam. That only thing is the simulator will not give you the results. That is the only thing. Otherwise, what right, wrong, everything you will get the solution report also. In the solution report, you can see what was the right question, and whatever you attempted is not correct, and you can just go and get the solution report and go and find it out that okay, what was the correct answer, right? All that you can do. So there are two simulator exams which is provided, right? So that way it will give you a little more aware that how you are going to write this online exam, right? So that way it would be little more easy for you, right? So, and this is just a prototype as you are writing an exam as good as like that, right? Course rating is really good. People has given out of 5 3.6, so this is also booming up. And now let's talk about the main part, right? So these are just the highlights, what is the duration, validity, all that. Now, if you see here, this is our course pattern which we have to do, right? Let me open this slightly more. So if you see here, so 20% weightage has been given to application design and build, right? 20%. And if you want to expand, we can expand it. So these are the things which is going to cover under design, right? So you have to define, build, and modify container images, right? So how to define container images. So they normally they are focusing on container images, how to build the container images, how to modify the container images. So all that thing you should know about the images, right? So this is what they are going to do over here. And then understand the jobs and cron jobs, right? So if you want to perform some ad hoc task, right? So you can just go and create a job. If you want to schedule it, that it's a repetitive task, right? You want to trigger the same activity every day, so you can schedule it, and that is what we say cron jobs. So here that is jobs and cron jobs. So very easy, very straightforward. So we will also practice, and this is how we can create your jobs and cron jobs. Understand multi-container pod design patterns. So basically we can create in a single pod, we can start multiple containers. So pod is basically Kubernetes resource who is going to manage all the operations related to containers, right? Or in simple way, I would say complete life cycle of the containers would be managed by pod. So pod can start one container or multiple containers. And here they are talking about multiple containers based on design pattern, because multiple containers are not always recommended, right? They will unnecessary, your networking will be shared, your resources will be shared, right? And that will degrade the performance of your application, right? And even the scaling up, scaling down, right? They will share the IP address and CPU memory. So that is not advisable, that is not recommended, but at times we need it. For example, I'm running one database application, right? And database, I have to send the logs, collect the log from this application and send it to monitoring tool so that we can track the health of this my database, right? But if the same container is collecting the logs and sending, that means the processor is busy with doing something else and your application performance will degrade. So what I do, I take helping containers who would just, right, on top of my container, they will be collecting the logs, right? Not this container, but there is a helping container, one more container who would be collecting the logs and sending to monitoring tool. So that logging part, complete operations of collecting the log every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes, whatever schedule we have done, and then every 5 minutes it will just go and send it to monitoring tool. So my main application will not be disturbed, right? That my database application will not be disturbed, and the helping container will do that. So there are some patterns, design patterns. Based on the patterns, we can just create additional containers, right? Normally we call sidecar, adapters, right? And all that thing. So here we will see what are the patterns and we can do. But creating this multi-containers is very easy. We can just go and create, and normally multi-container here through YAML, we can just add container. There's a very simple, easy way, and I'll show you how to do that, right? So we pick this up normally in the first session itself, for first or second session itself, and we always try to build our knowledge around that so that we should not fall trap of these things, right? So we will make our understanding right from basics, fundamental, and then we will bring the advanced things, right? The use cases, why we need this kind of multi-container design, right? And then we talk about the storage, which is basically volume concept. We call persistent volume, right? Underneath we have persistent volume claim, and then we have to the sizing, the storage capacity, all that thing. Might be other backup process, all that thing. So here, how to utilize, how to attach these volumes with the with my container, right? So that is how we just go and we will just create. And here we will talk about both, right? Ephemeral and other volumes we will talk more. So basically the storage, pod and all that thing which comes under application design and build. We have to literally build from the container images, and then how we can start, how we can introduce jobs and clone jobs, how we can introduce multiple containers as an helping container or my sidecar container as a based on the pattern and design, and then we can attach volumes also. All right, and the 20% weightage has been given to these guys, right? Similarly, so this is what we have discussed, right? And then we can close this thing, and then another deployment, right? So deployment is very, very powerful, right? So deployment creates many things. If you know the deployment, it creates replica set. Replica set is controlled by its own controller called replication controller. Deployment always monitors replica set, right? Because replica set is going to create the pod and do monitoring of my pod. Anything happens to my pod, replica set will maintain the desired state of my cluster, right? And everything is now owned and managed by deployment, right? So here we'll understand deployment part, right? And deployment use Kubernetes primitives, right? So what are the default things Kubernetes there, right? And implement those deployment strategies, right? So in terms of blue, green, canary, all that we will understand. And nowadays we have a rolling update strategy also that is also help me to upgrade my application. Instead of bringing the entire environment, we can do auto scaling and all that thing. So here we will understand. And here they more largely they want to focus on blue green strategy, right? Or canary, right? So that is what we will understand it over here, right? Blue green is basically it's a production environment only, right? So it is not an active and passive, that my active environment, something happens, it goes down, the passive can be promoted to active. It is not like that. It is active, right? Both will be there, right? So as a backup, and we will see how we can bring as a blue green. So they have taken that strategy only, right? So staging production, and we can switch, and that is automated switch, and we say blue green. So green means the active and blue means the shadow of it, right? So all that we do normally when you upgrade the application, let's say 1.0 is my blue and 1.1 is my green, because I've already upgraded, and this 1.1 is now having no issue, so we can promote as a production environment. So something like that strategy we follow it here. Then understand deployment, how to perform rolling updates, right? So how to do upgrades, right? Once you do upgrade and you feel that the new upgrade is creating problem, it is not stable, right? And it's creating problem, so you can always roll it back. And Kubernetes maintains all the revision history, right? It not just the previous state, just go back to previous state and roll it back, right? I can go to any other state because I have all the revisions available. So as and when I do upgrade, there would be a revision number. Kubernetes track through that revision number, right? So we can also maintain all upgrades in Excel sheet, and I can maintain the revision number. Okay, this upgrade with this revision like that, and we can roll it back to any revision. So here, very interesting strategy which Kubernetes follows, and we do all that with a live example with hands-on thing. Use Helm package manager to deploy existing packages, right? So now they have introduced Helm also. Earlier it was not there, so they have introduced Helm, and this course they have changed in September last year, right? So just a 4 months ago they changed this course, right? 4 5 months, and now they introduce Helm also. Helm is default package manager, right? And instead of maintaining too many YAML files, and I myself will get confused, right? Which one I've deployed in which version, right? Let's say in production environment or in corporates world, right? Or a solution development, how we do release by release, right? So here the Helm will maintain my entire release, right? And it will manage my application version and all that dependencies, everything, and what all things were there, right? Might be my pod deployment, but there might be some config management, might be some secrets where I've used a username, password, database connection string as an encrypted thing, and then there would be some services which I've created, and then ingress to route the traffic to outside world, or outside world wants to access my application through these services. Services will talk to my pod. So complete workflow, right? We can deploy through Helm, right? All the files we give to Helm. Helm is a package manager, so it will do packaging, and one by one, it will do. And next time when I want to upgrade anything, I need not to come with a new set of YAML files. The same YAML file, which are my standard YAML file, because YAML file itself is a templatized, right? They are templatized. So we are using all as a templates only. Just a key value pair, we feed the information, and they will do all magical things, right? So all the magic will be done by YAML. So here we just update those parameters, and those parameters will automatically go and reuse that same template again for the next upgrade. So like that, Helm is a lot more easier, right? And we can even maintain entire repository application wise. Okay, Java application, this is my repository, and .NET, Python, likewise, we can even create our own repository. So Helm is also very, very useful. So here we will introduce with Helm, right? If you have experience, well and good. If you don't worry about. We will start with basics, right? But they have introduced recently only, right? So we will also do that, right? So 20, 20, 40% part is done, and then right 40, and then this is again 40, 80, and then 20, so 100%, right? So let me open this observability and maintenance. So this is basically the hygiene feature of my applications, right? So here we will see how we can understand the APIs, right? There might be lot many APIs will be deprecated, lot many APIs might be changed. So Kubernetes basically is built on microservice based architecture, right? When any application built on a microservice based architecture, that means we can access the functionality of application through APIs. So here all Kubernetes resources are driven through APIs, and we will see as and when the deprecation happens. Let's say the in 1.22 version the deprecation happens on few APIs, but in my production environment, when I deployed my production Kubernetes environment, right, last year, one year ago, right, I deployed all the APIs and my Kubernetes production environment is up and running, right? But Kubernetes no more is supporting those APIs now after 1 year, right? And they have changed so many things, right? But my production environment, will there be any impact? So here we will understand, right? If the API deprecation happens, right? All right, what would be the impact on my production environment, and how to deal with these APIs, right? So it's very easy, and we can even customize, and we can see, and we can point to the latest version, all that we would understand over here, right? And then implement probe and health check. So basically there are many probes as a health check probes. Basically normally these are health check probes only. It will just go and check the health of my application, whether my application is still alive or not. If my application is still alive, it appears to be that okay, it is running up and running. But because of the long hours, right, I have deployed some application 2 months ago, right? And now the application appears to be up and running even today. But what happens is the application really serving the request. Sometimes it appears to be up and running, but it is not serving the request. You are not getting the response. Why? Because of the long duration of this application, which is running from last 2 months, right? Internal links might have broken, right? So Kubernetes has a special mechanism of health probe. So it will just go and check whether this application is really serving the request, right? So there are health probe which runs every 5 minutes, and they'll check whether the application is alive or not. If the application is alive, is it ready to serve or not? So here we will see all that health checks, and it will be so that my application will always remain healthy. So Kubernetes, we have health check and monitoring, and here we will see, right, which will bring the health check of my application, right? So ready to be served, and that is what it will go and check the status, right, whether this application is alive and ready to be served or not. Use provided tools to monitor Kubernetes applications, right? So there are many internal processes, right? So which will do monitoring of my resources, monitoring of my applications, auto scaling, right? Managing the resources. If the resources are not sufficient, more and more traffic is coming, how to allocate the resources, all that in terms of monitoring, right? Because Kubernetes gives a commitment that once you deploy an application in Kubernetes, right, it's a commitment from Kubernetes that your application would always run in healthy state, right? So here we will see what are the monitoring things, right? Even Grafana, all those things people have introduced from Prometheus, Grafana, all that thing, right? Now it's a container thing, so it's very easy, right? And we can always monitor by seeing what is my usage in terms of, because it will always give me the information in terms of log, and logs are very, very important in containers, right? So we just go collect the logs, and nowadays there are automated ways to collect the logs, and we will always see what is my performance, right, in terms of CPU and memory. So here we will see the utilization through the logs, and logs will give me the exact status, right? Even the commands are there. I can just display the information, what is the CPU and memory utilized by this container, right? All that things has been integrated now, and we will see. And we will also see there are something I want to do after looking at the log. We are not just to look at the log and keep quiet, we have to take some actions also. So here we will see how we can debug the things at times whenever something is not right. So we can just go and we can fix it, right? So here we will understand the debugging part, right? So 15%, but yet we will cover up all the most of the things are automated. That is why they have reduced the weightage, right? So 15%. Then application environment configuration and security, right? So here they have given a lot of weightage, 25%, right? So let's go and understand this part, right? And you see, so here discover the use of resources, right? So how we can go and extend the resources of Kubernetes, right? Resources means pod, replica set, deployment, services, jobs, persistent volume, all these are resources, okay? So how we are going to discover those resources, that whether those are running as healthy or not, right? Because if any of the resources goes down, my Kubernetes performance will go down, right? And it will bring a lot of issues. So we always monitor our resources. So there's a discovery services, we will discover the resources, and plus we use these resources and we can extend the functionality of resources by customizing it, right? So CRD is nothing but customize your resource definitions, right? So customize resource definitions, and that is what we do over here, right? So in terms of resources, we can do tweak, right? We can update, we can change, and we can correct it, and we can customize, right? So we can customize our resources over here. And then understand authentication, authorization, and admission control, right? So authentication, authorization is related to the permissions, right? The level of privileges, right? We cannot run all the time with the root privileges, right? We can bring our user privileges, and then we can authorize that, okay, this user can do what? He can only create the pod, or he can delete also, right? I don't want to delete the pod. It should be done uh, by the admin people, right? So the request has to be reviewed and somebody has to approve that, okay, this application can be removed, right? The developer cannot go and remove it, right? Or what else he can do? Can he remove the services? Can he remove the deployments? Can he remove other things? So here we can authorize him what all things can be given, and we can, based on the group and all that thing. So here we will bring the permissions and privileges thing, and we can control it through that. That okay, he can create pods, deployment services, but he can't delete. Or in some cases he can delete, right? All that thing we can define over here. And then that is how we can do the admission control, means ACLs and all that thing can be brought here based on the resources, right? So here we are mapping the user permission with the Kubernetes resources, and based on permissions he can access the resources accordingly. So that is what we are going to understand over here. Understand and define resource requirements, limits, quotas, and all that thing, right? So here again we are talking about resources, but resource in terms of limits and quotas. So that means, right, some application needs by default 4 CPUs and 8 GB RAM, but where will I define? So here Kubernetes gives that in the resource quota I can just go and define the resources, right? And then when this application will be deployed, right, Kubernetes scheduler will just go and check whether the resource available on the worker node or not, and it will find it out that where the resource available, and then your application will be deployed with those minimum resource requirement, right? Right, that was the minimum, and you can also define that this is my limit, maximum I can go and use, right? Normally what happens when you deploy the application start eating up all the resources, and when you bring other application, there is no resources left behind, right? When I say resource means in terms of CPU and memory. No resource, all the resources are eaten up by this application, right? So we can control all that thing, that this application cannot take all my resources from my worker node, right? And we can always set the limits in terms of CPU and memory, and it's a very handy, right? So that way my application, it will give the space for other applications which are running in the cluster, so they can also scale up, right? So it's related to scale up based on the resources. We can do scaling up, scaling down, all that thing, and we can fix the resources by defining it also, right? So this is very useful. So we can, within the limit, okay, up to 2 CPU to 4 CPU it can go, but not beyond that, right? If it's going to use all the CPUs from my machine, then it's the application not correct. So we have to report it back, this application is not correct, right? So when we do testing, we do performance testing also, right? And performance testing plays a key role. So it is something like we can fix the resources based on application, based on my container. Here we will understand config map. Config map is, in simple word, I would say environment variables. So many applications, right? We have to set the path, we have to set the version, my environment URL, so that I can access the application. All that what we do, we don't want to hard code in my YAML file. My YAML files are template files, and we don't want to create separate YAML file for my development cluster, for my testing cluster, for my staging cluster, for my production cluster. We don't want to maintain too many YAML files. So my YAML file will be universal, but environment specific parameters that can be handled through environment variables. Okay, for development my URL will be different, my client ID would be different, right? So other environment variable would be different. When it goes to staging, it would be different. When it goes to production, it would be different. So all these only customizable parameters which are dependent on environment will we can maintain through config maps, right? So and other things we don't want to change hard code the things in our YAML files. So, when I say YAML means manifestation files, right? So we can understand config map. Config map will do a plain text, right? So I cannot put everything in a plain text. For example, username and password, right? I cannot put it just like a plain text. Okay, username is equal to admin, password is equal to test at the rate 123, right? Anybody can open my YAML file. YAML file is just like a text file, right? Or I would say JSON file, right? Anybody can open these files and they can steal the credentials. And if anybody steal the credential, it would be disaster. Why? Because he can log in with those credentials and then later he will change the password. What will I do? Right? I can't do anything. And that is the trick these hackers they play, right? So what we need to do, username and password has to be encrypted, right? And for that we use the secrets. Secret will bring, we can create these secrets, and the secrets are nothing but same config map on it, but here we'll do encryption decryption. So by default Kubernetes comes with base 64 encryption decryption by default, right? But if you are working on a really critical application, let's say banking application, so you can also go and bring your encryption decryption tool, right? Cryptography and all that thing, you can bring it here, blockchain, all that, but ensure that they are compatible with Kubernetes, and then we can do encryption decryption, and I can encrypt my username, password, right? So when anybody open the file, it would be just junk characters, right? It is not a plain text that anybody can steal my credentials, right? There are many things, right? So when front end wants to talk to backend, we are using token, right? So we cannot expose token to outside world, right? Or there would be, let's say, database connection string, right? I want to encrypt it, right? So here this guy will bring the things. And now if you are coming with Azure experience, that because you are certified, so you know key vault, right? Key vault is does the same thing, right? Your encrypted scripts can be stored in a secured vault, right? It's a mini database kind of thing, but it is encrypted and nobody can just go query the thing database and get the details. It is not that thing. Only through system calls it will be taken and inform will be passed in encryption, and other way when it will be read by the system, it will be decrypted automatically. So there are algorithms written, right? And we can use the things. So same concept Kubernetes also use here. Then service accounts. So right, service account is something like my local admin accounts, right? So as and when we want to create on service account for applications, service account for resources, that okay, this kind of resources, let's say persistent volume, right? Anybody cannot go and change it, right? Then it would always be a problematic thing, right? It should be stable, right? And only at the time somebody should control it, and through the service account we do all that thing, right? So attaching volumes and all that thing and resources. So we create service accounts. Security context. So how you want to run your application with what privileges, right? Let's say root. So the group information, let's say, right? So 00 or let's say 1000 and 1000. So we do mapping and all that. So whenever you run this application in what security context you want to run, so here we can bring that concept also. And I can always create users. And nowadays in Linux, users are mapped with group. So you, right? So user ID and group ID, right? Based on that, we can enable disable application because we cannot give root access to everyone, right? If you give root access to everyone, that means anybody can do anything, and there would be very traceability would be very very difficult, right? So here security context will help me to do that, right? Anyway, we have authorization, authentication, but on top of it, we have security context also, right? In terms of UID and GID. Right? Again, interesting. Don't worry. A very simplified thing. Kubernetes is a very simplified application, right? And the scope is also very, very simplified. So it's not too complicated. Only thing we have to understand the basics. And once we understand the basic, we will build our own fundamentals. Once we are strong with basics and fundamental, then we can do all these magical things automatically. All right. And then this guy is really important service concept. So here we will see how we can bring the network policies. So which application, right? So when we send the traffic to application, right? For example, database. So database will receive the traffic only on a certain port number, right? Or from certain range of IP addresses or certain range of application labeling we can do. So we can enable or disable the traffic. Okay, we can accept traffic from this thing, and I can route traffic to this thing. So I can define some network policies, right? Right, yeah, right, inbound and outbound, both the policies I can define. So I can receive the traffic from, or I can send the traffic to my backend. So if I'm front end, I can send traffic to my backend, and backend can receive traffic only from this front end, right? Not from everybody, right? So that way my application cannot be attacked, right? And we introduce this network policy because by default Kubernetes opens all the ports on all applications, right? Though we define the port, but still, but here through the networking, we can manage the routing of traffic, right? The traffic itself, we can control it by using network policies. Provide troubleshooting access to application via services. So here it brings us services. As I told you, Kubernetes has been built on microservice based architecture, and there Kubernetes gives many services. There are a few internal services. For example, cluster IP is running across the cluster and it collects the endpoints of my pod, right? So service there, and there are external services called node port and right node port load balancer. These are external services which will manage the traffic for outside world. So anybody wants to access my application, the pod cannot be exposed just like that. So what we do, it will be the outside traffic will just go and hit my service, and this service they have a specific IP address. Kubernetes assign IP address to two resources. One is pod, another is services. So for outside there would be one IP, and through that they can access my application. But inside the service will talk to pod, so that we can safeguard our pod, and pod cannot be exposed directly to outside world. Otherwise, right, or my security layer, right, we will always get the threat that anybody can enter into my that IP address of the application itself and they can hack my application. But here the routing and everything will be managed by services. So service has a fantastic concept here. There are a couple of services, internal, external services. We will deep dive with the services, and through the services we will routing our traffic, and from outside we enable the access to outside world through these services. All right, so very interesting, right? So we'll do that, and then application access and all that, right? That is how we access through services only, right? We never expose the actual IP address of my application. That means the actual IP address of the pod will never be exposed outside, right? It would be always through services. And then we can bring ingress rules also. Basically we can rewrite the rules, and we can see how my application can be accessed, right? So let's say we have one shopping application, right? But in shopping application there are many departments, right? One is department for electronic goods, another for, let's say, household grocery, another for stationery, another for office, another for furniture, right? So people can go to other things, right? So we can put, let's say, one URL and then slash furniture slash electronics slash, like that. All the routing of traffic can be done by ingress, right? So here we will understand the ingress, and we can define the rules, right? It's just like a YAML file defined, and based on the rules we can expose this application. So normally my services will be accessed through this ingress. The ingress will enable the routing. Okay, for this kind of thing this is the URL, for this kind of thing this is the URL. So we can map the URLs to services, service to the pods, and my application can be accessed through this ingress, right? So now lot many inbuilt things are there, but on top of thing we have to just control through rules, right? So services are there, and on top of that we can do through rules which we call ingress. All right, so this is what we have, service and networking here. Again, very important topic, right? And that is how we do all that thing, right? So this is what we do here. If you want to expand everything, so these are the pretty huge course content, right? So this would take around 3 weeks, three weeks to complete thing, right? Or sometimes even 4 weeks, depends on you and me, right? How we understand the thing, right? So 3 to 4 weeks we will finish this course, right? Monday to Friday, 5 days. Or if you are planning for weekends, right? So we can have little extra, right? 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours on Saturday, 2 hours on Sunday, something like 4 hours instead of 5 hours, 1 hour, 1 hour every day, something like that we can always do. When I say 1 hour means sometime to go beyond 1 hour also, right? We are already middle of thing and you ask me some question at the end, then again it will take 10-15 minutes. So expected is 60 to 70 minutes every day, right? So this is what we do. And certification on demand in the market, they have very high value in the market, right? And because of that, today if you display the logo on your resumes, on social media profile, if you float your profile with a certified logo, right, you would be shortlisted. So it gives definitely a value add, right? And be the first one secure and the recognition in your career path. So that is how it will help you. Lab setup, as I just now mentioned, so we will do, right? We'll have Docker instance created on cloud. If you go for Docker course, I think you're already aware. Kubernetes also we do multi-node cluster setup on AWS, and these are my system requirements. So for master node, we need 2 CPUs and 4 GB. So only we have to, there would be little cost, but that is manageable, right? It will be somewhere between $5 to $10 per month, right? So which is only for this node. Other nodes is a free of cost. 1 CPU, 1 GB from free tier. I can use it for at least 1 year, and AWS is not going to charge. So my worker nodes, multiple nodes we will be doing from free tier. Only one machine master node, which is just the beginning of AWS thing, right? So it would be very minimum. I think they charge few cents per day, right? So that is the only thing. And operating system mostly we'll do on Ubuntu, because Ubuntu is a new family member under Linux operating system, and Ubuntu they have done a lot of things, like they have introduced security features, they have introduced many things under Ubuntu, so all that thing we do it here, right? And then we access by your own profile, so we can create your own account, whether it's a Docker. If you are registered on Docker Hub, well and good. That will help me for uploading and downloading the images, and for AWS also, if you have a registered account, we can use that, right? And then, so this is about lab setup, right? And on top of it, you would be provided with all the training materials based on whatever we are doing in today's session. That module, related to that module, you will be provided the training material. All the session will be recorded, so you will get the recorded session. Whatever use case or exercise or YAML files I would be using in that session, right? So that even those will be shared with you.